This is Newsroom on SABC News. Hello and welcome from Johannesburg here in South Africa. My name is Eben Jansen. The show is broadcast live every weekday morning between 9 and 10 a.m. Highlights are then repeated at 2 in the afternoon with a rebroadcast at 5 a.m. the following morning. We also stream live on YouTube between 9 and 10 a.m. every day, and the entire show can then be watched on our YouTube channel as well. Today, we look ahead to next week when the world will stop to watch Oscar Pistorius take to the stand in his sensational murder trial. And then we'll also go a little bit later in our show and look at the human face of the strike, or the protracted strike in South Africa's platinum mining sector. But first, let's take a look at the news headlines. President Jacob Zuma has broken his silence on the Nkandla debacle. He's emphasized he never asked for the multi-million rand upgrade to his Nkandla residence after the public protector found that he'd unduly benefited from the renovations. Zuma has shifted the blame to government officials. He was speaking during an election campaign visit to Gugulethu on the Cape Flats. Zuma says officials did the upgrades without telling him. South Africa has come out in support of an African Union call to shun an EU-Africa summit in Brussels this week. President Zuma has now joined leaders like Zimbabwe's Robert Mugabe in boycotting the summit, this in protest of the European Union being seen as dictating the composition of Africa's delegation. Pretoria will now only be represented at ministerial level. NFP leader Zanele Kwamagwaza-Msibi has called for an urgent meeting with the ANC leadership in a bid to calm the tensions in KwaZulu-Natal. She made the request after NFP members were allegedly attacked by an angry mob wearing ANC T-shirts while campaigning in Ifafa on the south coast. The mob attacked the opposition party's convoy, burning 2 cars and injuring 2 members. Oscar Pistorius has just over a week to make sure he's ready and prepared to tell the world exactly what happened when he shot Reeva Steenkamp. The athlete's murder trial was unexpectedly postponed last week. He's back in court next week when Pistorius himself is expected to take to the stand. Over the last couple of weeks, the focus on the case dwindled somewhat, with media houses shifting their attention to other news. Now in studio, we are joined by Tanya Curry from Data Driven Insights Africa, who always gives us wonderful insights. Good morning, Tanya. Thank you for joining us.
Eben. Thank you for having me.
I suppose people want to know what the latest numbers say about the case and the way that it's being consumed and viewed at the moment.
You know, what was interesting to me is we've been monitoring the case week on week, so we've done an analysis from one week to the next. And even though there were only 2 and a bit days in court last week, it was the 3rd largest week carrying media for the Oscar Pistorius trial. And I think that was because people were anticipating that Oscar was going to take the stand. I see media houses today are saying, should he take the stand next week? So I'm not sure what that means.
Now, should he take the stand next week, I think it would be probably one of the most anticipated events around. We'll see a real spike, I suppose, in the way that people view it, not just in this country, but around the world.
Yeah, so what we do is we take a massive data set which contains 6.2 million social networks, 60,000 online newspapers. In South Africa, we then add to that 2,000 print titles and 66 radio and television stations. And what you're seeing on the screen now, Eben, is how we collated into one dashboard. So you can see there on the top left of the screen, you'll see the week-on-week analysis, and you'll see that the last week made quite a big indent in the chart when compared to the weeks before. Yeah. It's crazy to think that there's only 2 days worth of trial. What's also interesting on the right-hand side is you'll see that the South African media has slowed down. So we've slowly stopped talking about Oscar over the past week or so. You'll see there's a massive dip in the media press week on week. We expect, though, with Oscar taking the stand and also with the Judge Masipa handing over her judgment, that will then put the chart back up to where it was on day 1, which hit up to unique hits of 90,000 inserts in one day.
And what's the general sense amongst people now? Are they still talking about guilty as much as they used to? And has public opinion turned on Oscar a little bit? And is it really imperative that it puts a good show on when he goes onto the stand?
I think the world is waiting for Oscar's side of the story. I think that is definitely the case. We've been doing also a thing called the guilt versus innocent meter, and here we've measured how many times the word guilty is used in social networks versus how many times innocent. When we started the exercise right at the beginning of the trial, it was a 10-to-1 statistic in favour of guilty. We've also seen it wave over time. There's been a 7-to-1 statistic at some point, and then just recently, like day before yesterday, I think the statistic was sitting at 9-to-1.
So the sense is that the people believe he's guilty.
The stat says that people use the word guilty 9 times more than they do innocent. I have no opinion on that.
What are then the main topics of discussion on social media around this?
Well, it all depends on which angle you're looking at, but the witnesses have featured quite prominently across the trial. Michelle Berger, still the most talked about witness in the box. The investigative Masenga, I think his name is, he also came right to the top. Samantha Taylor, Darren Fresco, all those guys generating a lot of conversation online. And then also the WhatsApp messages that were read out in court made a massive impact on the timeline. Barry Rue, massive topic of conversation. People love to talk about Barry Rue. It will be interesting to see coming up in the next, over the next couple of weeks, how Harry Nell features in the media, because I think the conversation might shift quite a big bit towards Harry Nell. So yeah, it'll be interesting to watch.
Has it, in a way, become also a sort of a face-off between these litigators, between Barry Rue and Harry Nell, and do people expect Harry Nell to be almost as vicious and as strong when he starts his cross-examination of their witnesses next week?
I think Harry Nell, there's a lot of anticipation about how he will cross-examine in court because Barry Rue set the bar quite high for talkability. I think people are dying to see what Nell is capable of.
Can the story get any more coverage than it's getting?
I can't believe how much it's getting anyway. But yes, I believe it can. I mean, there's two massive hits coming to our way, and that is firstly when he takes the stand and also when judgment is given. So those 2 days are definitely going to beat the first day. And the first day was something I've never seen him before, and I've been doing this for 15 years. So it's extraordinary.
And now there's a sort of lull before the storm, isn't there?
Yes. The press fell off the actual chart in the past week, well, in the past couple of days due to the postponement of the case. So I'm hoping that people will find something else to talk about. We did further analysis and we measured other big stories. So Nkandla coming in 55 to 60% of the time in the past 7 days, so that's good. We also measured some other big murder cases like the Zanele Khumalo story that also came in prominently over the past weekend, maybe with even a little bit more than Oscar Pistorius in 24 hours. I can see you got some stuff on the chart there.
Yep. That was a big one last week, and in the same sort of vein.
Yeah, exactly. And what's interesting is Griquistad only just under 20% of the conversation in the past 24 hours online. Marikana coming in 50-50 split with Oscar, and that's also over 24 hours, which is quite reassuring that people are talking about important things. You know?
What about the Ebola outbreak? Because I was quite interested in that to see how it would reflect, because it's something that could really threaten everybody.
Yes. So this is we measured this on the worldwide platforms on news only, and here you can see that the three big stories out there are Oscar, Malaysian Airlines missing aircraft, and then the Ebola outbreak. And it grows every day, which is quite interesting, the Ebola story. We started off at about 5%, but today it's sitting at one in every 5 articles is about Ebola if you measure the three together.
Let's go back to Oscar. I just want to ask you about the camps that exist on social media and how these camps are, how their responses have been the last couple of weeks within the context of what's been going on.
We saw a massive spike on the Justice for Eva camp, as you so put it. Also the ANC Women's League featuring quite prominently in that camp. So that is definitely on the chart. Also the family of Oscar Pistorius being mentioned quite a great deal in relation to the trial and the support they're giving from Amy and Carl in particular. And then you've got the other people who are almost treating it a bit like a soap opera. You know, and it's like, where's my fix today? My soap opera fix today. It's a little bit unnerving, but yeah.
And when we talk about, you talk about this soap opera, you've got the central characters that are the judge and the litigators and the like, but who are some of the people that have really taken a leap forward in the mind's eye of social media during this trial?
Well, apart from the obvious ones, which is like Barry Rue and Harry Nell, there's a couple of journalists that step right into the platform. Alex Crawford from Sky News, Deborah Patta, featuring a lot of the time with being one of the biggest tweeters on the trial. Barry Bateman, obviously, also shot to fame overnight with the Oscar Pistorius trial. So, yeah, a lot of people are being... They seem to be sectioning off news reporters that carry unbiased, straightforward, to-the-point news, you know. So those personalities are also growing in relation to the trial. Even our company has taken quite a bit of a step forward due to the statistics being carried on the trial.
And now this week, obviously, there's a lull.
Yes.
But do we expect things to start going crazy again by the weekend comes?
Absolutely. In fact, Eben, I don't expect the Twitter conversation to die down an awful lot. People still talk about this all the time. It's the news that's actually died down, you know, where the reporting on the trial. So I expect towards the end of the week it'll pick up again massively, and we'll be back in the frenzy on Monday.
Well, Tanya, thank you for joining us today. We'll ask you to come back again next week and show us the numbers, see what's happening. And it's very interesting to see how it is consumed and how it's impacting on the world's view at the moment. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Eben.
Well, that was Tanya Khoury from Data Driven Insights Africa giving us, well, a little look as to how the media and how social media is affecting this trial. Of course, top story, President Jacob Zuma has said he never asked for the multi-million rand upgrade to his Nkandla residence after the public protector found that he'd unduly benefited from it. In his first public reaction to the report, Zuma shifted the blame to government officials. The president said he does not decide on government spending. Zuma was speaking during an election campaign visit to Gugulethu on the Cape Flats. With just 5 weeks left before the May 7th general elections, the ANC campaigned in the Western Cape to try and wrest control of the province away from the Democratic Alliance.
The ANC has stepped up its election campaign to win the hearts and minds of the crucial voters. Since 1994, the Western Cape has been a hotly contested space for the ANC, with the ruling party struggling to obtain majority support in the DA-run province. Whilst there's slim chances that the ANC will take over the control of the province, party leaders have used every opportunity to discredit DA leader Helen Zille.
We've got a premier that have sworn allegiance to the Constitution, but still speak of our people as refugees. How can we be refugees in the country of our birth?
The ANC is once again using the racial and poverty divide between the white and black communities to win support of desperate voters.
The Western Cape has a problem. You need a government here that cares for all people, that is in a position to ensure that you change the quality of lives of black people in particular. All of them, Africans and coloreds, is the same.
People too had their say.
We are hoping now, as he's coming for the second time, he's going to do the best. We know they're giving us a lot of empty promises before the elections.
Whilst the ANC looks set to retain huge support in black townships, it's still faced with the mammoth task of regaining trust amongst the colored community, which is a key voting bloc in the Western Cape. Tsepo Ikaneng, SABC News, Gugulethu.
Non-governmental organisation Locked Up says there are over 800 South Africans languishing in foreign prisons for different offences. This comes as KwaZulu-Natal convicted drug mule Tessa Bietka arrived back in the country last week after serving more than 5 years in a Brazilian prison. Founder of the organisation Locked Up, Belinda West, joins us on the line. Good morning, Belinda. Are you there?
Good morning. Yes, I am.
Belinda, could we start with your response to Tessa Bietka arriving back in the country last week?
Yes, thank you. Well, look, to be honest, the arrival back of Tessa Bietka is a welcome relief. You know, the trial of Cheryl Twele was covered quite extensively, that Tessa was in fact lied to and conned into making this trip, only to arrive in South America, have her passport taken away and threatened and told she had to bring the drugs back. So the justice that has really been done here is that the arrest and conviction of Cheryl Twele and Frank Nobolisa have brought about justice justice in that they are the recruiters and they are the people who are working with the drug syndicates and unfortunately conning people into carrying this kind of contraband.
Now tell us, how many South Africans are locked up in foreign prisons at the moment?
We get different figures. The Department of Correctional Services and Foreign Affairs sort of hangs around the 680, 690 mark. We think there's about 1,000 that are officially locked up, and there's some that are unofficially jailed overseas that don't want their families to know where they are. So it could be as high as 3,000 people. We're not sure about that.
And the most offences are drug-related?
Probably about 60% of them are drug-related. We must understand that South Africa has become a hub for drug trafficking globally, and this is becoming a more and more common activity to actually send people across to bring back particularly cocaine from South America.
And what are the important issues that you feel the whole Bidge story raises about South Africa, and then what needs to be addressed?
Well, obviously, there's been a lot of media reporting about Tessa, and there's been a lot of talk that it's been glamorized and she's being treated as a hero. And this was obviously why she dodged the media when she arrived at the airport last Thursday morning. It raises more awareness of what is actually going on in our country, where we are having a problem with law in many areas of our society today. So this is becoming a growing problem, and it really just brings about more awareness of what is happening.
Is it true that South Africa does not have a prisoner transfer agreement with other countries?
Yes, we are one of only 2 countries in the world that doesn't have such an agreement with other countries. Most foreigners arrested in any country have the right to apply for repatriation to their own homeland, where they're not set free, they serve their time on home soil, which is what one of the missions of this organization, Locked Up, has been fighting since 2008, is to get the government to sign onto the bilateral agreement and repatriate our citizens so that they can at least serve their time on home soil, close to family, and have some sort of rehabilitation before they are released.
Belinda, tell us about the work that Locked Up does, and also then tell us about the challenges or the major challenges that you guys come across.
Sure. The Locked Up organization came about in 2008 when I became personally involved. A friend of mine was arrested in Venezuela, and I found at the time that there was very little information around and very little help from government departments just to try and get word of what was actually going on. Through that, I managed to hook up with other families in similar situations, and so the organization was then registered as a non-profit organization to legitimize it and just really offer support and a little bit of guidance to families that contact us with a similar situation, and also raise awareness amongst South Africans, amongst the youth. If they're approached by anybody offering them a holiday overseas or a 2-week trip or a job overseas, we're just trying to raise awareness and say, hold on a minute, you need to look at this a little bit more closely before you accept job offers, as it was the case with Tessa Bidge. She was offered a job in the UK by a trusted neighbour, by a government official, head of the health department, so why wouldn't she trust her? And when she left the country, she was only then found out that she'd been rerouted, and the whole modus operandi was something quite different to what she had thought.
Now, Belinda, tell us quickly, if you're arrested in a foreign country, what rights do you have? And secondly, what should you do immediately?
Well, first of all, being arrested in a foreign country, you are a foreigner, and particularly if you are arrested with drugs in your possession, you have no rights whatsoever. You are immediately disliked intensely by those authorities because you've invaded their country with a crime. So you have no rights. You are generally thrown straight into solitary confinement for a few days, and your family and loved ones at home will hear no word from you. You just disappear off the face of the earth. Then you're stuck in a country where usually the language is the first barrier. On your arrest, you are made to sign a statement that you can't read or understand because it's in a foreign language. Then you have a cultural barrier when they are jailed in these countries. So the psychological impact of the incarcerated individual is quite severe. The families back home then have to send money every month for their loved ones simply to survive behind those prison walls for the duration of the sentence, which could be 2,000 or 3,000 rand a month, which most people don't have that kind of money to spare. So the repercussions on the family and the individual are quite severe for this type of thing.
Belinda, thank you for joining us on the line. That's the founder of the organisation Locked Up, talking to us about South Africans languishing in prison, foreign prisons, well, officially just more than 800 at the moment, but she says the number could be as high as 3,000. Time now for us to take a look at what you're talking about on social media. Be interesting to see. Africa is a country, says Soul film minor shot down about Marikana massacre. This film and not Oscar Pistorius. Pistorius should be on South African TV all day. Rob Bruce says, first Tiger Woods, then Lance Armstrong, and now Oscar Pistorius. I think Nike should start telling their athletes, just don't do it. I like that. That's very good. And then Ruse said, OMG, catching up on Pistorius' style. He often got annoyed with her accent and voice. He often told her to stop chewing gum. Poor Reva. And Junior says, I hate watching the Pistorius style. Too many assumptions are made from both sides. Well, those are just some of you views coming in. You saw the hashtag at SABC Newsroom on Twitter. Also, you can go to our Facebook page, of course, /SABC Newsroom on Facebook. Keep the comments coming. As the guy said, please don't do it if you're thinking about it. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we look at the changing face of education here in South Africa. This is Newsroom on SABC News.
Zoom into Africa. This is Senegal. The president is Mr. Macky Sall. Senegal withdrew from the Mali Federation on 20 August in 1960. The population is more than 13 million people. One of the major languages spoken is French. Monetary unit is CFA.
Good day and welcome to yet another evening of Afro Showbiz News.
Kumba is a South African animated film that tells a story of a zebra who looks different.
It's about a zebra who's born with half his stripes, and he goes on a journey through the Karoo to find his stripes.
We've shown it to a few audiences at festivals around the world, and we've had really fantastic responses. So we're very excited to see what the South African population thinks of Kumba.
That's Afro Showbiz News, Saturdays 7:30 p.m. on SABC News.
Welcome back here with Newsroom on SABC News. The University of Johannesburg has unveiled its new brand positioning called The Art of Accomplishment to promote the university's status as a leader in tertiary education and build its reputation globally. Now, UJ's Vice-Chancellor, Professor Aaron Rensburg, said at the launch of the campaign that the new positioning will bring to the fore the university's reputation for innovation. But let me not say more as he joins us in the studio today himself. Professor, thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Eben.
Let's start with the focus of the campaign and your thinking around this process and why you feel the need to reposition.
Well, this is the third phase of the university's evolution. So you might be asking, goodness, 3 evolutions in 9 years.
Yeah.
It in fact represents our approach to the university. Not a static, bureaucratic, administrative institution. Yes, complex, collegial setting, very challenging setting with the council, with students, with staff, with trade unions, with a whole range of interested parties concerned about the university. Challenging, yes, complex, but at the same time a great opportunity to innovate and to challenge ourselves. So the campaign is really about 2 things at the same time. On the one hand, it is reflecting on where we've travelled, the distance we've travelled in 9 years, but it's also opening a new chapter in terms of investing in the future of the university. And so we'll, over the next 7 years, invest another 700-800 million rands in teaching and learning, in research innovation, and in additional infrastructure to support our teaching, learning, and research at the university. So yes, it's about the art of accomplishment, that it's possible to accomplish. It's possible, despite extraordinary challenges, to build strong universities. And number two, it's about opening a whole brand new chapter for the university.
The brand positioning word seems to be innovation. You say this is the third phase, and to just tell us about innovation and the successes you feel you've had over the last 9-10 years, and how you see the university improving in the years to come.
So we started off, of course, as a merged university, 3 different cultures, 3 different kinds of institutions, 3 different traditions, 3 different missions, if you like. And the first job, of course, was to bed down that merger. That you could call innovation. Others will call it simply administration. Just get the job done. But of course, it was not just about administration and about putting in place the basic building blocks of the new university. It was also about looking forward. And one of the big focal points of us was on teaching and learning. A lot of kids who come as first years into the University of Johannesburg and into the national system of the universities in South Africa, do not come adequately prepared. So we could throw up our hands and say, wow, this is not our job, that's the job of the school system. We've chosen a different path, which is to say, these are the only kids we have. We can't import, we can't export. These are our children, and therefore let us put considerable effort in teaching and learning. And so great effort has been put in. We've built up a very strong first-year experience program to assist our students make the transition from school to university. It's quite a step up. For those of us who have been through it, it's a step up. As I always say, it's not grade 13. It's the first year of a whole new chapter in your life, which is demanding. And so one of the great innovations that we now are starting in the third phase of our university is the use of tablets in undergrad teaching and learning. And so from the beginning of this year, all of our first-year students, undergrad students, have been required to have available to purchase a tablet. Some 2,000 odd students who we believe would not be able to afford it, we were able to get a very good price and to provide free to those students who are financially destitute a tablet. So the big innovation, first university on the continent, working with Apple and working with Pinnacle, first university on the continent that will roll out over the next 4 years into our full undergrad program, the use of tablets in teaching and learning. I think that's going to be a great breakthrough for UJ, but also broadly.
Absolutely is. Just want to backtrack. You spoke a little bit earlier about, kids coming through into university, and we always in South Africa, we hear about our education system being in crisis. The quality of student coming from school into the university, as the Vice-Chancellor, are you happy with the quality of student that we see coming into our tertiary institutions? And then what are the challenges that facing tertiary education in South Africa?
So the response can be a response that says they are not in good shape. The evidence is there. So firstly, only about 25% of our high school graduates actually meet the basic requirements for entering to university. We know that most universities have far higher entrance requirements than those basic needs, but then we examine even the 25%. These are the best of our graduates from the high school system, and we find that only about a third of them have the language capability to cope in university. Only a fifth of them have the statistical and quantitative skills to cope in university, and only a tenth of them have the mathematical skills to cope with the science, technology, engineering programs, health sciences programs of our university. And so what we've done at UJ is to invest tens of millions of rands in programs to enable these young people to transition. So we have an extensive tutorial system at the university. The point there is that fund, or those funds, could have been spent on infrastructure or on better research infrastructure, but we chose to do that. Now, let me give you the good news. The good news is that after that investment that we make in these young people, you look at the stars that they become. So this past Friday, the first part of the chartered accounting exams results were released. The stunning thing is that students at UJ achieved a 95% success rate in those exams. And even more stunning, UJ today produces 27% of black CAs in the country. Now that is an extraordinary accomplishment, and all that we've done is we've said, these are our children. Let's make the investment in. Let's support them. Extensive tutorial. Let's amend the curriculum in order to enable them to complete their programs slightly longer sometimes, but generally on time, and look at the outstanding results and how they compare with their peers in these external examinations.
Professor, thank you for joining us this morning. We've run out of time. It's something that we could take much deeper into our show, but that's unfortunately the nature of the business. Thank you once again for joining us. That's Professor Aaron Rensburg, who is the Vice-Chancellor at the University of Johannesburg. Let's just take another look at what you are talking about on social media. Rico says, number one, says he shouldn't pay for Nkandla upgrades because he didn't ask for them. Well, I didn't ask for e-tolls. Why should I pay? Teresa Taylor says, as I drove to work this morning, I had angry tears in my eyes over Nkandla. It's another working week in the struggle to keep, feed and clothes. Khalabwe says, don't get me wrong, the ANC is capable men and women, but because they are being sidelined, we have Nkandla and a disregard for ethics. Water Warrior says, so no one in the Public Works Department wants to stand up and take the blame for the Nkandla saga. What, like, nobody, anybody? Hi. Everybody's a comedian on a Monday morning. Keep it coming. We love your comments. Now, last night, the new Miss South Africa was crowned at Sun City. 21-year-old Rolene Strauss, a medical student from Bloemfontein, walked away with the honors. Let's take a look at the crowning, or the highlights from the crowning ceremony.
Get all the latest news from the SABC's online news services on our website. Breaking news and in-depth coverage of everything from business, sports to politics and lifestyle. Catch the top news clips and watch live streaming of major news events on the SABC News YouTube channel whenever. Stay connected on the SABC News Facebook page and have your say on news that matters to you. And for the latest headlines and live updates from our reporters, follow us on Twitter. SABC Digital News, anytime, anywhere.
The DA is using 10,000 rand for poop scoops. A disgrace!
They found that Cape Town is the best run metro in the whole of the country.
What steps will you take to protect communities from the kind of police brutality?
When I am the mayor, I won't take the R1 million salary.
You guys all look the same. None of you should be trusted.
Catch the election debates on SAFM, SABC News Channel and SABC One, Sundays at 6 p.m.
Welcome back. You're watching Newsroom. Let's just take a quick look at the news headlines. President Jacob Zuma has broken his silence on the Nkandla debacle. He's emphasized he never asked for the multi-million rand upgrade to his Nkandla residents. after the public protector found that he'd unduly benefited from the renovations. Zuma has shifted the blame to government officials. He was speaking during an election campaign visit to Gugulethu on the Cape Flats. Zuma says officials did the upgrades without telling him. South Africa has come out in support of an African Union call to shun an EU-Africa summit in Brussels this week. President Zuma has now joined leaders like Zimbabwe's Robert Mugabe in boycotting the summit. This in protest of the European Union being seen as dictating the composition of Africa's delegation. Pretoria will only be represented at a ministerial level now. NFP leader Zanele Kwamwaza-Msibi has called for an urgent meeting with the ANC leadership in a bid to calm the tension in KwaZulu-Natal. She made the request after NFP members were allegedly attacked by an angry mob wearing ANC T-shirts while campaigning in Ifafa on the south coast. The mob attacked the opposition's convoy, burning 2 cars and injuring 2 other members. Poverty and unemployment around northwest mining villages rocked by the platinum mine strike will be at the top of the agenda this week. A roundtable discussion led by Premier Thandi Modise, Joel Netshitenze from the Mapungubwe Institute for Strategic Reflection and Professor Julian May of the University of the Western Cape. The main focus of the discussion will be mining, poverty and unemployment, and input from the discussions will be fed into the National Development Plan priority areas in the province. Now, our reporter, Sello Tatai, has been following the strikes on the Platinum Belt and has seen the effect of this strike with his own eyes over the last year. Sello joins us in our studio in Mafeking. Good morning, Sello.
Good morning, Eben.
Sello, we understand the strikes had devastating effects in all the mining areas. Just give us your experience of what you've seen.
Well, even the situation is dire on the ground, with workers having spent more than 2 months without getting their salaries in many of the informal settlements that we have visited, where most of these mine workers reside. They have little or nothing to eat. Their children are also not attending school because they cannot afford to pay their school fees and transport fees. And you get a sense that many of them are divided as to whether they should continue with the strike action or they should go back and report for duty while negotiations are continuing.
And the workers, Sello, how are they coping? They've been without salaries now since the 23rd of January. How are they and their families coping, and what are they doing to stay alive?
Like I said, Eben, the situation is very much dire on the ground, and many of them are unable to afford the little things to keep them going, and this has resulted into them taking an enormous pressure in terms of providing for their families. And of critical concern, though, is that they continue to lose some of their little possessions in a form that now your leading retail stores are now repossessing their finishers. And of critical concern, though, is the fact that your micro-lenders or loan sharks are not willing to give these workers money because they maintain that they are a high risk. So many of the workers are feeling the pinch of this industrial action, and they have got little or nothing to put on the table for them and their families.
And what are they saying now? They will continue with the strike. They support the strike for 12,500 Rand despite the toughness of the situation.
There are divisions as a result of this industrial action. I mean, with 2 months into the strike now, one would assume you'll get that sense of frustration from many of the workers. Some are saying that they will continue to support the strike, while others are saying, guys, let's really carefully look into this matter and carefully scrutinize what will happen after the industrial action. And those are some of the divisions that are playing themselves out as the strike continues. And you have unions also representing the workers who are calling for workers to be resilient, because the 12,500 rand is a living wage and it's genuine on their part. But on the other hand, you've got National Union of Mine Workers, which has lost its majority status to AMCOM, saying that from the beginning of 2012 until 2013, you had 16,000 workers who have lost their jobs as a result of the strike action, and they are they are citing only mine workers and the contract workers who are working for different contractors at different mines in the Platinum Belt are not included in the 16,000 thing. So the reality is that workers have lost jobs since 2012 until now, and you get a sense that after this industrial action, obviously the mines will want to restructure. Restructuring will come to the form with platinum companies restructuring their services, and possibilities are that more workers will lose their jobs.
Salone, I wanted to ask you about the ripple effect that this strike is having on the entire area. We understand that shop owners and other business are also finding the going quite tough. Is that accurate?
Yes, that is accurate. Even just last week, we spoke to the Rustenburg local municipality, which shared the same sentiment, saying that many businesses, small businesses in the form of tech shops, your taverns, your bottle stores and butcheries are feeling the pinch and have closed shop. And also the retail industry in Rustenburg, which relies entirely on the buying power of the miners, is also taking a knock. So business is not as usual in Rustenburg since the 23rd of January when the strike started.
Selena, this coming discussion conference, what are the expectations and how is it going to change people's lives?
I think to change people's lives now it will be very much far-fetched, but one would assume that it will try to provoke debate on how the situation can be arrested and possibly offer solutions going forward on how this crippling industrial action could be avoided in the long run. But over and above that is to also come and challenge some of the policy gaps that are visible in Rustenburg or in the Platinum Belt. Yeah. I mean, the Benchmark Fund, according to a research by Benchmark Foundation, in the year of Marikana 2012, Lonmin alone paid its shareholders $31 million. So the Benchmark Foundation is saying that to a larger extent, mining companies are not telling the truth by saying that they cannot afford 12,500 after deduction. And you also get a sense from the mining companies saying that, you know, the offer that they've made of 9% is 3% above inflation rate, and saying that to a large extent the continued industrial action are not benefiting either the mine workers or the mining companies. Just last week they released a statistics and a report saying that workers have lost over 4.4 billion in earnings, while the mining companies have lost over 70 billion rand in earnings since the start of the strike. So I would think this coming conference, coming conference, which is aimed at dealing with issues currently hampering business in the Rustenburg and particularly the Platinum Belt, is aimed at trying to find solutions to some of the issues that are playing themselves out in Rustenburg.
Selo, thank you very much for that wrap of the expectation this week as talks will continue to try and arrest the slide and this crippling strike within the mining sector. Finally, Johannesburg's Rea Vaya bus drivers are embarking on a strike today. It's still not clear why the drivers are striking or how long this action will last. Now, on the line, we're joined by Gauteng Community Safety Department's Obed Sibasa. Good morning, Obed. Can you hear me?
Yes, Eben, I can hear you, and good morning.
Just tell us, why are the bus drivers striking here in Johannesburg, Obed?
Yes, we no longer anticipating Rea Vaya bus drivers are on strike, and yes, They are going to be meeting with their management. We're waiting for the outcome. Earlier today, as promised yesterday, they were supposed to have posted commuters from 5 a.m. until 8 a.m. However, that didn't happen. Some parts of Soweto were affected.
And how long do we expect this industrial action then to continue, Eben?
Yes, mind you, our mandate is safety and law. The quicker the better for them to solve their problem.
And Eben, to tell us, what are the alternatives that are there for communities to use when they're travelling in and around Johannesburg now today?
Advised passengers or commuters to use alternative transport, lease clubs, or make alternative arrangements for them to be able to work as well as after work to also look at the same. You know, our concern, as I earlier indicated, is safety. You know, if people can be home early, that would be better. As Gauteng Traffic Police again will be monitoring those area via stations as well as area via routes. Not forgetting your taxi rank as well as your bus stops.
Obed, thank you very much for joining us. The line, unfortunately, is too bad for us to continue. That is Obed Sabasa giving us a little heads up as to what is happening with the bus strike, railway bus strike in Johannesburg. Let's just go back and take a look now at the crowning of Miss South Africa 2014 last night, Rolene Strauss. Here we go. Yeah, it was a fantastic show, and congratulations should go out to Melinda Bam and her team for putting on a fantastically modern, they said it was a very modern Miss South Africa and brought the pageant into a new era. We hope so. Rich history it has, the Miss South Africa pageant. So Miss South Africa 2014, Rolene Strauss, a medical student from Bloemfontein. Let's just take a look at who's been handing out the congratulations. Minister Razzmatazz in the mix. Congratulations to the new Miss South Africa, Miss Rolene Strauss. Congratulations. We are behind you. All the contestants were good. That's right. We agree with you, Mr. Minister. They were all very good. Sumeshni Chetty, Rolene Strauss is the epitome of beauty and brains. A perfect role model for young South African women. Mpo says, congrats Rolene Strauss and the princesses. My Matty, you did us proud, love. Mwah. Obviously a family member. Yes, they all were quite stunning and highly intelligent. We had them here a couple of weeks ago and they were very impressive young women. A credit to South Africa, they all are. A credit, yes, as I said, a credit to South Africa, all these beautiful young women. Not everybody can win, but last night it was a great show and a great showcase for South Africa. This show is broadcast live every weekday morning between 9 and 10 a.m. Highlights are then repeated at 2 in the afternoon with a rebroadcast at 5 a.m. the following morning. We're also streaming live on YouTube between 9 and 10 a.m. every day, and the entire show can then be watched all the time on our YouTube channel all of the time. This is SABC News. You've been watching Newsroom. We love it in the morning.
SABC.